Well, good morning, everyone. This is Mike O'Malley here with the Hurricane Season 2020 update, part of the Hurricane Outlook and Discussion for August 20th, 2020, recorded around 8:46 a.m. Eastern Time. Well, we have a lot to talk about today, so let's go ahead and dive straight into it. First of all, in the Eastern Pacific Basin with Hurricane Geneva, still a hurricane with sustained winds of about 80 miles per hour. And this will be slowly crawling off towards the west-northwest here over the next couple of hours and days. Again, this is the position by 12 a.m. Saturday, only now beginning to pull away from the Baja of California. Now, for you folks down here in the Cabo San Lucas Resort areas, tropical storm force winds remain kind of present across that area, especially in the hurricane warning area, in the tropical storm warning area. Again, tropical storm watches remain in effect for portions of the western parts of the Baja California. But otherwise than that, this is now beginning to pull away, but it's not going to pull away that quickly. Now, it will be weakening. This wind field will be kind of broadening out and also contracting a little bit with time as this kind of moves off towards the west-northwest. And again, this will still bring some heavy rain, gusty winds, etc. And certainly those swells are not over yet for especially even the Mexican coastlines and portions of the Baja of California all the way up here. These swells are still, this is still a swell producer. Heavy rip currents, higher tides, etc. That is going to be the bigger story there. So for you folks there, just be mindful of that. But again, right now the worst of the impacts are away from land. They are offshore by a little bit here, which is good news for those areas. Now, in the Atlantic Basin, we do have Tropical Depression 13, which is a newly formed tropical depression, which got its designation last night at the 11 o'clock p.m. advisory package. And again, this is a former Invest 98L, and we talked about how this was likely going to get a designation at some point, and that is right now. So first things first, tropical storm watches have been issued for portions of the northern Lesser Antilles, St. Barth, Antigua. Those areas are now under a tropical storm watch. Now again, the reason for this is because there's greater uncertainty in terms of how far south or how far north this track actually ends up being. So there's a lot of uncertainty because there's a lot of uncertainty regarding the initial motion and position of the center of Tropical Depression 13 right now. You notice that, again, this is going to get dangerously close to the islands. Now, for you folks, again, this is mainly, going to be a northern confined event here. So, if you're, anywhere from, Barbados southward, Trinidad, Tobago, you have no worries from this at all. This isn't just going to take this random southwest dive like that. That's not going to happen. So the further south you go from this track, obviously, the less impacts you're going to have. No impacts are expected from Trinidad, Tobago up to Barbados, and even some of these islands kind of in between here. The worst of the impacts right now are going to be confined to the northern Antilles and even all the way through near Puerto Rico and St. Croix, the U.S. British Virgin Islands through here. And again, that is going to come close to those areas. That's what I really want to specify here, and we'll talk about that here in a moment. But again, this has the potential to go a little bit further south, yes, but not too far south. But again, tropical storm watches have been issued for some of the northern Lesser Antilles, including Antigua, I think St. Bart's as well. And then beyond that time frame, this is within the next couple of days, but beyond that time frame, this is then going to get dangerously close to Hispaniola, the Dominican Republic, Cuba, and then eventually the Bahamas, Turks and Caicos, and Florida. And again, I've seen a lot of model runs, people posting the, H-WAR for the HMON showing, well, you can see what it shows, right? And I want to specify that we just don't have those answers yet. It is a little bit of a concern, especially in the back of my mind. It is a little bit of a concern that those two models are consistently showing that. The GFS is catching on. We'll show that here in a moment. To the HWARF and HMON's idea. giving it a little bit more credibility, but again, there's still a lot that we don't know yet. And the National Hurricane Center, obviously they're good at forecasting and they're good at what they do. They only, for what it's worth, they always start conservative, yes, but for what it's worth, they showed the system sitting off the Florida's west coast and the Florida Keys area as a 70-mile-per-hour tropical storm. Yes, it could be stronger, or yes, it could be weaker. And a lot is going to hinge on what land interaction it has with these islands over the next couple of days. And then, all these land masses and the terrain in that area, what interaction it has with those is going to be very important here. And this is also moving west-northwest here at about 21 miles per hour. So it's not likely to significantly organize today, tomorrow, and over the next couple of days. We can see this here on the visible satellite here from tropicaltidbits.com. And again, our center of circulation is roughly in through about here. And one thing that was rather surprising last night is that this did get an upgrade to a tropical depression instead of a potential tropical cyclone. And the reason for that is because the scatterometer pass that came in showed a non-closed low-level center in this vicinity. And it is still entirely possible that this might actually just be a kind of an open but very sharp wave envelope in through here. It is entirely possible, but also for the common good, it is just better right now to go ahead and initiate advisories, given the fact that this is likely going to organize further. And, this has really tried to consolidate a lot more this morning. You notice a pocket of deep convection kind of surrounding where our supposed inferred low-level center is. We do have some banding structure going on with it right now. So this is indicative that the storm is trying to intensify and organize this morning, across those areas. And again, it's sitting within a relatively moist envelope right now, although there isn't a whole lot of deep convection. There is some, and we can switch out here to the infrared satellite loop here. And you can see from earlier this morning, there wasn't a lot of deep convection in this general vicinity, but there's enough certainly to sustain itself as kind of time progresses. And you can kind of just see how that evolves here. A pocket of deep convection there and more deep convection trying to burst. But again, you can tell here from the infrared satellite that there is a lot of dry stable air. There's a SAL surge, or a Saharan air surge, up to the north. There's also now some vertical wind shear that's kind of being imparted on it, and we'll talk about all that here in just a moment. But for right now, it actually doesn't look all that bad, but it's not structurally, it's still not that well organized this morning, and it still has a while to go. We can see that here on the Vorticity product. This is from 9 UTC, so just a little while ago. And basically what we're looking at here is the spin in the atmosphere about 5,000 feet off the ground. And the higher you go up in the scale, that's your higher cyclonic spin in the 5,000 foot level. And we can see here the associated signature with 98L. And again, that's going to be moving in this general direction here over the next couple of days. But again, you can clearly see that it's a lot more bundled in the vorticity field than it was yesterday. And it looks a lot better. And, you don't have a big ball of, stretched out vorticity in through this vicinity. You have a much more concentrated area moving off towards the north and west. And that's very important because that consolidated energy, now, conservation of angular momentum and, all those good physics and thermodynamic events and everything else, all the good complications, we're now starting to get a lot more answers than we had before. And this, again, happens to be another significant whiff for the global models. And we talked about it, that the global models, just because they don't show development doesn't mean that we won't get development, and vice versa. And we have a tropical depression now. It's not the best organized tropical depression I've ever seen. It's a tropical depression, though, for a particular reason. It's not organized enough to be upgraded to a tropical storm or what have you. So yes, the loosely defined character of it will get better organized. It's going to take some time, and it's not going to become a tropical storm here over the next day or so. And one of the big factors that's kind of playing into this, and you know, we're focusing solely on 98L, but we'll touch on 97 as well, is, you know, this, you know, water temperature out here, you know, 28, 29 Celsius, and it's, you know, sitting in an environment right now, something like this, moving in this general vicinity. And that is going to be moving into fairly significant water temperatures and higher upper ocean heat content in, you know, this general vicinity out and through here. The upper ocean heat content, you know, it's certainly there. It poses a concern, because if this does not make significant land interaction with these islands, well, you see where it's going. These water temperatures in the Bahamas, you know, and off the coast here of Cuba, you know, 29, 30 Celsius, even, you know, some pockets of 31 scattered in through here, into the Gulf of Mexico, the Caribbean, you know, and we talked about how, you know, if something comes along to take advantage of this, it's rocket fuel. Something might now be coming along to take advantage of this. And this is one of the things, exactly one of the things that we did not want to see. But it is a very real possibility of more significant intensification if this misses the islands out here. And the GFS forecast illustrates this pretty well. What we're taking a look here is the cyclonic potential vorticity. And again, basically, there's, you know, your shear. What you really need to know for this map is basically your shear and basic, you know, detrimental impacts to tropical systems are going to show up here in more of this orange and red color, and everything down in this vicinity in kind of the blue and whatnot. This actually is pretty decent for tropical cyclone structure and health. And a couple of things to note here is that there is, you know, obviously 97 is right here, and Tropical Depression 13 is here. But what we're taking a look at here on the larger scale is this is a potential vorticity streamer right here. This actually is inducing a little bit of vertical wind shear right now across Tropical Depression 13. Or, you know, it's about to induce some wind shear across this region. And we move this forward, and a couple of things to note here. So first of all, a weaker system has a harder time kind of putting up a brick wall, quote unquote, between this positive vorticity streamer and its surrounding diabatic outflow with the tropical cyclone. And what actually ends up happening is, if it can't form that brick wall and basically shove this PV streamer out of the way, what actually ends up happening is this PV streamer actually gets entrained and induces vertical wind shear across a tropical cyclone. And of course, vertical wind shear disrupts and tilts over the vortex structure in a tropical cyclone, which thus reduces the potential for it to intensify. It increases the likelihood of dry air being entrained in, and all the whole 9 yards there. So what actually ends up happening is it actually struggles a little bit in here. You can see the pressure is only about 1,005 or whatever. It actually begins to tighten up, though, on approach into the islands. And you notice that the PV streamer here is now starting to be broken down a little bit, and a stronger cyclone is putting up a little bit better of a fight against this PV streamer. But once this moves here into the Caribbean, you notice how now we're almost getting that outflow to kind of block it from this PV streamer. Now this streamer is actually getting cut off and retrograding back off towards the south and west. This outflow is also helping to ventilate it, and you can see basically this outflow pool, an outflow channel down through like that. And the GFS actually strengthens this into a pretty potent hurricane on approach into the Bahamas and Florida. And this is, you know, out in 102 hours. You know, this is, you know, before the 5-day mark. This is the 24th of August by Monday morning. And you can see, again, very healthy outflow structure. This PV streamer is sliding off towards the south and west. It's retrograding, but that's not going to matter because this PV, or, you know, this diabatic outflow is basically ventilating the storm on all sides, basically. So what you end up getting is a storm that's avoiding land. It's strengthening because the outflow pool is basically now expanding in all directions, and it's away from this sheared environment. Now, granted, the shear in here is only about 15 to 16 knots. It's not that strong. We saw Hurricane Michael blow up and 20 knots of shear, basically, And again, I'm not saying that's what this is going to be, but my point is that we just don't know enough about tropical cyclone intensity in a modest shear environment. We just don't know enough about it. There's a lot of research, but we just don't know enough about it right now to be able to predict these things with significant confidence, right? So if this avoids land, and if it manages to hold together the next couple of days and not get completely ripped apart by this PV streamer, yes, there is a surefire possibility that this will end up a stronger system on approach into the Turks and Caicos, the Bahamas, and Florida. Now, exactly where it goes from there, of course, I don't know that answer. No one does. But the GFS is finally starting to catch on, and mostly because it's not getting torn apart by this PV streamer back here. And again, you can just go back to the previous run. We'll go back to the previous 2 runs. You notice how it was a lot weaker. It was closer to the island chain. This PV streamer was dipping all the way down in here, just shearing the system apart. And you can actually see, though, what actually ends up happening. If we go back to a couple of frames, you can really see how the outflow channel in the model field is actually depicted a little bit better, stronger on this side, helping to kind of ventilate some of this area. So yes, it is a possibility that something could be stronger right now than currently predicted on approach into the Bahamas, the Turks and Caicos, and Florida. Yes, it is certainly possible. And the HWRF model kind of validates this here. And as we step it through time, again, it's going to be very disorganized the next couple of days or so. But you notice now it's approaching the islands as a tropical storm. This is, tropical storm pressure is about 1,001 millibars. And you notice that this now becomes a hurricane. It explodes in the Bahamas. And, this is 93 hours out. And this is as far as we're going to go out here on the HWRF because, yes, the rest of the model run is pretty scary. And we're not trying to scare anyone here. So the bottom line is that the HWRF blows this up into a major hurricane. Here, for reference, that's Nassau, that's Andrews Island right there. And for what it's worth, again, the HWRF, the HMON, even the Icon, whatever you want to say about those models, yes, the HWRF, and especially, I want to point this out real quick, the HWRF model, in particular, it's a hurricane-specific model, but it does have a bias where it tends to overdo low-end weak systems in this part of the world right here. And again, this would be approaching, just north of Puerto Rico at this time here on the model by 2 p.m. Saturday. The HWRF has a tendency to overdo the intensity. But what if this isn't a fluke, And the fact that we're starting to see the GFS catch on, from a model that was saying absolutely no development to now, okay, yes, this is going to be a hurricane. It's a little bit of a change in the global models, and it's certainly a very real possibility that we have to kind of act upon and think about here. So again, it goes back without saying, of course, the first thing here is for the islands. If you live down there, you need to have your hurricane preparedness plans ready and being implemented now. And if you live here in the Turks and Caicos, the Bahamas, and Florida, you need to have your hurricane preparedness plans ready to go because, again, you only have, 3 to 5 days now to really be prepared, and that's not a lot of time because this is going to be moving relatively quickly into this environment. And if it is still something, a closed cyclone at this time, there is still a pretty decent likelihood that this might be able to intensify further and become something a little bit more potent. So we will have to watch that going forward here over the next couple of days or so. That is 98L, or I'm sorry, Tropical Depression 13. Now, on to 97L with a 90% chance of development over the next 5 days or so. And again, This is yet another land concern potential for Central America. It's going to bring some heavier rainfall to portions of Jamaica, obviously Honduras and Central America, Belize, even probably the western tip of Cuba there could be impacted by. If we take a look here on the visible satellite shot, again from Tropical Tidbits, we can see that this has a lot better organization to it today. A lot more convective structure to it there. This is actually the island of Jamaica right there, I do believe. And again, that's basically South America right there. And this is the island of Jamaica right there. So some heavy rainfall ongoing for those areas. But you can see a lot more convection right now associated with tropical depression, Invest 97L this morning. We could still notice that there is some arc clouds. This is indicative, once again, of dry stable air from thunderstorms collapsing. These thunderstorms that will go up, they pulse up and they pulse right back down, they collapse, and all that cooler air from the top, the tops of these thunderstorms and the top of the stratosphere basically comes crashing down. It rushes out to the ground, it fans out, and it creates this outflow boundary, and you can see it here on the visible satellite. That's indicative that we have dry stable air in this environment still, although we have a lot more in the way of convection associated with it today than we did yesterday at this time. And it does look to be self-sustaining this morning, and the Hurricane Center does note that advisories could be initiated on Tropical Depression 14 later this afternoon or evening as this moves off towards the west-northwest here. Now, if we take a look here at the GFS forecast, this is, once again, the Cyclonic Vorticity. This is basically your PV streamers and your outflow channels, and we looked at this regarding the Tropical Depression 13, which is over here in the model field, and this is 97L. Now, one thing that's now beginning to happen, you kind of notice that we have a trough that's digging in through here, and this trough axis is roughly positioned something like that. And this trough axis is now kind of digging into the Gulf of Mexico, in the Gulf Coast states, and the Midwest. Now, what happens is, while this is a relatively shallow model, this is relatively shallow in the model field, the vorticity is still strong enough down here that as this moves up towards the north here, you start to see what happens. First of all, this moisture field kind of gets pulled just due north. And now what you start to have in the modeling is this area of troughiness kind of just hanging out here. And that's going to start to slow down 97L. And what's going to end up happening is over the next few days or so, that eventually is going to drift further to the north, because this trough in through here is now going to begin to start evecting off, off and causing 97L to get pulled and evected further to the north. Now, there's a couple of things to watch here. So first of all, if this does not develop into a tropical cyclone in this general vicinity in through here, at least a strong enough one, it is entirely possible that this completely just goes over and drifts off towards the west over the Yucatan and ends up somewhere down here in the Bay of Campeche and Southern Gulf. But if it is strong enough, yes, there is the likelihood then that this will get evected further to the north with that trough of low pressure digging back in here. And we can see this illustrated better here on the GFS 200 millibar winds here, again from Tropical Tidbits. And again, a couple of things to note here. First of all, this is a pretty large, almost anticyclonic flow out here. Notice this is the trough that's digging in here. That is the axis of the trough right there. And where 97L would be kind of situated, is roughly within that area here. And going forward, again, you can kind of see how this trough is still lingering down through here, and that's going to start trying to affect 97L further to the north. Now, one of the main problems here with this is that there is going to be vertical wind shear across this region, and we can kind of see that with the streamline winds here. That actually here at the 200 millibar, the wind flow is out of the southwest blowing to the northeast, and a storm in this environment would be coming almost due north. So you can see where we would have a little bit of shear interaction in this general vicinity. Now, it wouldn't be the strongest shear in the world, but this is still a sheared environment where you got, southwest to northeast winds at, 200 millibars. And basically at the surface, or, this storm is trying to get tugged further to the north. Yes, that is a little bit of a sheared environment in through there. And it does, raise some eyebrows, though, because that, while it might temporarily enhance outflow, there's also, shear concerns and stuff, for a correct alignment basically with the shear, you would like to see a system moving off towards the north and east here, because the wind vectors are blowing southwest to northeast. You would like to see a tropical cyclone moving northeast to be correctly aligned with the shear alignment here. So, there is some questions as to if 97L does get affected further to the north, is it going to run into this sheared environment and basically do nothing? And it is a very real possibility. Obviously, you can see Tropical Depression 13 here in the model field, but it is entirely possible that, yes, Tropical Depression, or what could be Tropical Depression 14, right now is 97L, might run into a bit of a problem in the Gulf of Mexico with the wind shear across this region from the trough that is trying to advect 97L to the north. Now, if in fact this does not get affected and it's actually weaker, it will move into the Gulf of Mexico and the southwest Bay of Campeche. And once again, that shear is now going to start to relax here by 90 hours. And if it does make its way into the southwest Bay of Campeche, the shear in this general vicinity, at least for the time being, is relatively low, and it actually weakens with time. You can see on the model field a hurricane here with what is now Tropical Depression 13, but you can clearly see, the shear starts to really relax in this general vicinity over the next few days. So it is worth watching, especially if this does not get affected further to the north. Either way, some storm or depression is likely here in the southwest Bay of Campeche or the southwest Gulf of Mexico here as time goes on. Whether it's being affected to the north or whether it's moving over the Yucatan and into the Bay of Campeche remains to be seen. There is really two possible outcomes, or three possible outcomes rather, with what is now 97L. So again, a lot to watch here over the next few days or so. And certainly I will be on top of this. Of course, go follow me on Twitter at MikeRomali1. Links will be down in the description down below. There you will find all my latest posts regarding these two tropical systems going on currently. As a real quick note here, I'm not going to be able to do an afternoon update. I do have some stuff going on with orientation, with jobs and stuff like that, so I'm not going to be able to do a video discussion earlier or later this afternoon. Although once I get home this evening, roughly about 7 o'clock or so, I'll have another video discussion out here by about 8:30 this evening or about 9 o'clock Eastern time. So just be on the lookout for that. All right. With that being said, hope you all have a great rest of your afternoon and evening. I'll talk to you guys again later this evening around 8:30 or 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. Stay safe, everyone. I'll talk to you guys some more tonight.